Hi, my name is Officer Sean Nichols with the California Highway Patrol. So at the Getaway Scales, we want to focus on safety. So when we pull in a vehicle for inspection, we want to make sure that the driver is in compliance, so their hours of service are accurate. We also want to make sure that their vehicle does not have any mechanical violations that could affect the safety of the motoring public. So we have a wide range of outcomes for our inspections. We have drivers and vehicles that are completely within compliance. They get their CVSA decal. And then we have drivers on the other extreme that are completely dangerous. We have one example of a driver who had 29 violations and 14 of those violations were out of service. So for us, we want to make sure that everybody is safe. And by doing that, we can make sure that everybody can get to where they're going.
Hello, my name is Richard Betancourt. I'm a commercial vehicle inspection specialist here at the Gilroy northbound scales. Today we performed a 37-step Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance Level 1 inspection. So here at the Gilroy northbound scales, we have what's called a drive-wise or a pre-pass. That allows property carrying vehicles to bypass our facility. If they get a red light before they enter our facility, they must enter. If they get a green light, they have authority to bypass us. If they pull in and they are subject to inspection, we will give them notification by either a green arrow or a directional sign at the end of our facility to direct them to the inspection bay. Can you turn your lights on, please? Turn the lights on. Turn signal. Other side. High beam. Thank you. Step on your brake, hold it down. Release. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, sir. The reason we pulled you in is because you don't have a CVSA decal on your windshield. Okay. So how's your day going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. So do you have your license with you real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you have the registration for your truck and the trailer?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And then where's the load coming from?
It's coming out of Oxnard.
Okay, and where's it heading to?
It's going to San Jose.
Okay, and then do you have a logbook?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And you got an inspection mode? Perfect. Okay, and then last thing I'm going to check is, do you have your fire extinguisher for the truck?
Yeah.
Okay. It's right here in the door. All right, so I'm just going to check to make sure it's discharged and that it's secure. And then do you have your roadside reflectors?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just going to check to make sure you got 3. Perfect. All right, so if you need me a favor, just stay in your truck. I got to fill out some paperwork and I'll be right back, okay? All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to look at the logbook for the driver. So we're going to make sure that the driver's logbook is accurate for the current day plus the past 7 days. So in this case, the driver, they did their pre-trip in Gilroy and they got stopped here in San Martin. So we're going to go back to the previous day. We're going to make sure that where they went off duty is where they went on duty today. We're also going to make sure that they're not over hours on their drive time or for total working time. And then we're going to make sure that if they work for 7 days a week, that they have the current day plus 7 days. And if they work 6 days or less, that they have the current day plus 6 days.
So we're going to check his license to make sure he doesn't have any restrictions, as well as endorsements if he's running hazardous materials or tanks or stuff like that. Our system runs it for us through the SID list and our state system, so we can check to make sure that it's valid, and at that point it'll notify us if his medical card is valid as well. It'll see he is good for commercial operation. Here we check all the registration, make sure the registration's valid for the year. For the truck and trailer, we will check his hours of service. And I'll go ahead and enter this stuff into our iTerrace program, and we'll get started with the inspection process here shortly. Okay, so we're going to start at the front. We're checking subframe. And then can I have you rock your steering side to side for me, please? All right, we're checking steering components, steering gearbox, sector shaft, pitman arm, steering shaft, and we're going to work our way back to the suspension. Okay, we're going to check tires, rims, hubs on all axles. So he's checking the tread depth, looking for bulges and cuts in the sidewall. We're inspecting the wheels for cracks. We'll move on to the wheel fasteners and the hubs as well. And he's also looking in the handhole to look at brake components to make sure no rotors are cracked or any brake components are broken. Moving back to the fuel tank, making sure it's secure, there's no fuel leaking. Moving on back to subframe and frame. We're inspecting plastic air tubings and hoses to make sure they're not damaged, crimped, or leaking. Again, subframe. On a car carrier, there is a lot of subframe, so we're making sure that it's not cracked as well. Hydraulic fluid's not leaking. Working our way back. Checking the securement of the load. Make sure the straps are not cut or damaged. And again, we're getting back to axle 2, and we're doing the same process. Tire inflation, tire sidewall, rims for cracks, wheel fasteners, and hubs. Sidewall, wheel fasteners, and cracks. And we're still maintaining a close eye on the frame and subframe to make sure there's no cracks. Securement of the load. And we'll get to the fifth wheel. Making sure the fifth wheel is secure, the pivot pin. We're checking the air hoses as well. Making sure there's no unapplied air loss or the hoses aren't damaged through the ply. And again, subframe again, we're working our way back. Securement for the load. Okay, subframe up on top. Making sure there's no cracks. A crack through the radius, a crack through the web on the subframe and mainframe as well. Continuing back, get back to the axle. We're going to check the same process as the front. Suspension, inflation. Make sure your airbags are inflated. Sidewall for the tire, wheels for cracks, and fasteners. Okay, obviously the tread depth for axle 4 and 5, 2 and 3, and 4 and 5 are different. They're 230 seconds. Steer axles, 430 seconds. Okay, again, subframe. Securement of the load. Checking all the lighting markers, side marker lights, all the required lighting on the vehicle. And we're going to do the same process on the opposite side. We're going to go ahead and start with axle 1. We're going to start on the steering side. We're going to check all the steering components, drag link ball joints. We're going to inspect your U-bolts, your tie rod ends on both sides. We're going to make sure the disc brakes are not cracked, the chambers are mounted correctly, there's no loose fasteners. On the inside as well, we're looking at the inside tire sidewall to make sure there's no cuts and bulges. We're going to be inspecting all tires on the inside on all axles. We're going to systematically go through suspension components, rear shackle assembly, make sure all the fasteners are secure. We're going to move over and check the opposite side. All the fasteners, shackles, make sure the bushings are not worn, shackles not come in contact with the frame, U-bolts, inside tire, brake chamber, disc brakes. There is no brake measurement for disc brakes. We're just making sure the pads are at proper depth and there's no looseness or leaks at the chamber. Working our way back, fuel compartment, drive line, making sure the U-joints are secure, fasteners. We're checking all brake tubings, make sure they're not worn into the second color or cut or damaged. Air tanks, making sure they are fastened. Again, air tubings for damage to the second color, cuts, tears, leaks. Center carrier bearing and universal joints, all the fasteners. We're going to slowly, systematically work our way back. As we're inspecting the suspension, we're looking at frame and cross members as well. Air hoses, rubber hoses, make sure it's not damaged or fraying, cut into the ply or leaking. Again, all the fasteners for all the components, brake and suspension. Airbags to make sure they're properly inflated and secure. We're inspecting, again, inside tire, brake chamber, and systematically working our way back to the next axle. And we're going to do the same exact process on axle 3. We have a drive line in between the two axles, so we will inspect that as well. Our hoses, make sure there's no bulges or leaks. All the fasteners. And again, we're checking all subframe, cross member frame web, flanges. Make sure there's nothing sagging, broken. As we're walking back, we're scanning left to right. We're looking at subframe and the main frame to make sure there's nothing cracked, broken, or sagging. Continue back all the way to axle 4. Subframe again. Okay, so we do have brake chambers on axle 4 and 5 left and right side. We're going to make sure those are secure. We're going to check all the hoses and suspension components. We're going to look at the brake pads to make sure they're at proper depth. They're not cracked, missing segments. Make sure all the retainer and return springs are there. Make sure the drum is not cracked externally and doesn't open up upon application. We mark the brake chambers to check the push rod travel. When the brake is actuated, that's how we get our brake adjustments. Working back, checking securement, brake pads, drums, retainer, return spring, making sure there's no internal leaks in the hubs. And again, all frame components, all suspension components. We have no tools, we have no pry bars. If it's loose and we can move it with hand pressure, it's extremely loose. And continuously looking at subframe to make sure there's nothing cracked, broken, or sagging. We're also checking to make sure none of the hydraulic fluid is leaking as well. Okay, during the course of the initial inspection, we found a violation. Axle 3 left and right side, center airbag mounting bolts were loose. the carrier left the facility, went back to the yard, fixed and repaired the violations noted on the report, and came back for a re-inspection. Just on a side note, the truck has to be fixed before it is redispatched once it goes back to the yard. At the Gilroy inspection facility, we use the flag system. So once we put the flag out at the end of the trailer on the driver's side, that signifies we want the driver to step on the brake and hold it down and apply the brakes for us. Once we come up to the front, we'll have the driver release the brake and then rock the steering so we can check all the steering components. Go ahead and wave the flag. Flag's out, brakes are on.
Here we mark this so that when he applies the brakes, you're going to see this travel out. So we do our best to try and mark it. So you kind of line it up with that. You mark it like that. And then when we measure it, we'll put it up like that. It's like our measuring device right there. Yeah, and measure that. Because depending on the chamber sizes, how long they get. And so we're just checking the travel on that. So they have long chamber, they have long strokes, and they have clamps. But it's only our service guide that has all the numbers. And then when you put it in the computer, it's out of adjustment, it'll be red. Big thing though is when they apply the brakes, we want to be on this side. So he'll apply the brake, and then this is let them know. Yeah, so we typically do this. All right, go release. Yeah, we're looking to see if it pops up and down. Okay. So we go back there. The last one right there. Last one right there.
I need you to hold him down. Yeah. I need you to hold him down until we ask you to release. While he's under there, he's making sure there's no applied air loss. He's checking the brake chambers, make sure they're not leaking. There's no bulges in the air holes. There's nothing leaking from any plastic air tubings as well on a non-proper air fitting. Go ahead and release your brake. And I need you to rock your steering side to side as hard as you can. While he's checking the steering components, we're checking the tie rod to make sure there's not more than 1/8 movement, vertical movement with hand pressure. We're also checking all the components, the suspension components, to make sure they're not loose. Steering gearbox, make sure there's no movement in the steering gearbox. The pitman arm. Okay. That's good, thank you. And that concludes the underneath inspection. Okay, sir, can you go ahead and make sure the key is on for me? All right, and show me where your low air warning device is. It can be visual or audio. All right, and go ahead and pump your brake down until that comes on for me. Low air is on. How much air pressure do you have? About
My
60 pounds?
My primary's at like 49.
Okay.
My secondary's at 52, 53.
Perfect, thank you. You can go ahead and shut that off for me. Can you turn the power off? Okay, thank you. And that concludes our inspection. A vehicle passed the level 1 inspection, so now we're going to issue the CVSA decals to the trailer and tractor.
At the end of the inspection, there are 4 possible outcomes. The first outcome is the best one, and that's where you're going to pass the inspection and actually get your CVSA decal. The second outcome is where you may have a minor violation, such as a clearance lamp not working. In that case, there'll be a violation on the report. However, it's not considered a critical vehicle inspection item, so you'll still get your decal. The third outcome is it's an item or a violation that meets a critical vehicle inspection item. In that case, you will not receive your decal. Whatever's wrong will have to get repaired prior to the vehicle being redispatched. And the last outcome is if a vehicle is placed out of service. In that case, the only way this vehicle is leaving this facility is if it's towed away or if it's repaired on scene.
Here at the Gilroy Inspection Facility, it is a partnership with industry and us to make sure that all commercial vehicles are in compliance and safe. Our #1 goal is for everyone on the roadways to get home safe. Thank you and have a nice day.